Hi pals, and welcome back to the test server of patch 8.8 once again. And something amazing has happened, because as you can see I've got a T-34 and a 112. For those of you guys who have already accessed the test server, you will know that everybody got a T-34-3 and a 112 yesterday evening for free into his garage. And I think this is really amazing because everybody was getting really excited and really angry with Wargaming because they didn't put these two tanks into the Chinese tech tree, although they were announced for patch 8.8. They still aren't in the tech tree, but now everybody's got them in their garage. The reason why they aren't in the tech tree is because they won't be in the tech tree. Once 8.8 goes live, they'll only be available in the gift shop on the World of Tanks website. The problem obviously is that there isn't a gift shop on the test server, so nobody can buy one of these tanks, and that's the reason why they gave every one of us a T-34-3 and a 112 for free. I think this is really nice of them because everybody, me including, was really looking forward to testing out these two tanks, and I was really disappointed when they weren't on the test server because I was thinking about getting myself one of these here too, and I saved up piles of gold in order to be able to buy one of these once they went live, because in patch 8.8 it will be possible to sell the Super Pershing, which I will do, and I'll be really happy to see the back of that tank. And I wanted to use the gold I get out of that to buy me one of these or the 112. But it won't be possible to buy them with gold. You'll have to buy them with real money in the gift shop. So, no gold. And that's why I'm probably going to buy the American T-34 now. But I'm maybe going to get this for Christmas or something like that because I really love this tank. And it's going to be about this tank now for today, and tomorrow I'm going to do a review, or not really a review, more like a preview of the 112. But today it's all about this body here, the T-34-3. Now before we start off, I just want to quickly point one thing out, and that is that I haven't had very many games in this yet. It only became available yesterday evening, and I've been playing it ever since, and I really love it, but I haven't played enough games in it to be sure about everything I'm talking about here. So always keep in the back of your head when you hear me talking here that I haven't got all that much experience with this tank. It's only the test server. There's more gold flying around than you can count, so the impression you may get from this tank might be false. Things can and will change with this tank before it goes live probably, so this is not a review. This is a preview or a test server review. So, don't nail me down on every word I say here. But this tank is really amazing. It's fast. Well, the gun is kind of tolerable, but the armor is amazing, and it's just a really nice tank. It really suits my style of gameplay very well. A lot of people were saying this tank's going to be crap and it's going to be shit and it's going to be a nerfed Type 59 and so on. And in some respects that's true, but it isn't really, and this tank is a worthy heir to the Type 59, I'd say. We'll just quickly have a look at its stats, and I fear that I don't own a Type 59, so I won't be able to compare it to a Type 59, but I kind of know the specs of a Type 59 a bit, so I'm just going to do a comparison to the Type 59 kind of from the back of my head, but mainly I want to compare it to the 112. Now obviously this is kind of a bit of an unfair comparison because the 112 is a heavy tank, the T-34-3 is a medium tank, but both of them have got their pros and cons, and both of them are kind of pretty similar in a way. 1,300 hit points is very average for a tier 8 medium tank. Nearly all tier 8 medium tanks have got 1.3k hit points, that's normal. 1,500 hit points on the 112 is kind of on the lower end for tier 8 heavy tanks. So, well, it's obviously more than the T-34-3 has, but it's not very much really. So basically the 112 can take one hit more in a tier 8 game than the T-34-3. As the T-34-3 is a medium tank and the 112 is a heavy tank, it's obvious that the 112 weighs more. It weighs pretty much exactly 10 tons more. But the engine is not all that much more powerful, like it's only got 60 horsepower more. That basically means that the T-34-3 has a lot better power to weight ratio. The T-34-3 has got power to weight ratio of 14.38. I fear I can't get the power to weight ratio for 112 because it doesn't show, but But believe me, the T-34-3 has got a lot better power to weight ratio. It isn't really all that good a horsepower per ton ratio for a tier 8 medium tank. So a lot of other medium tanks will be better than the T-34-3 in terms of maneuverability and speed. And especially when you're going up a hill, this tank can slow down to 20 or even 10 kph, which is really slow. And that's just the distinct favour of the Chinese medium tanks as you go up the tech tree, that they've got amazing guns, or very high damaging guns, but they've got a very high weight and kind of not all that powerful engines, considering that they are medium tanks. That's kind of a bit of a downside here. The acceleration is not all that great considering that it's a medium tank, but don't get me wrong, this tank is still very speedy. It can do up to 50 kph, and on flat ground it will reach that speed, and it's fairly maneuverable with 46 degrees traverse speed on flat ground too. So obviously the 112 can't really keep up with that as a heavy tank. It's got similar speed, only 5 kph less, but as the power to weight ratio is a lot worse, you won't really reach the speed all that often, except for going downhill. 26 degrees traverse speed, obviously there's no comparison between that and the traverse speed of a T-34-3. The armor is very good actually on the T-34-3, considering that it is a medium tank. It's got 90mm of frontal hull armor, which by itself is not all that much really, but it's angled very well. This is a pretty steep angle, so you get a lot of bounces from the upper glaciers, and the lower glaciers is a pretty small target, so it's pretty difficult to hit, and your upper glaciers is surprisingly bouncy, and if you angle your tank about like this, then this will be pretty bouncy. You don't want to angle it anymore because your side arm is only 50mm. That definitely isn't much, so if you angle it anymore, shots will penetrate through your side. With the 112, it's obviously got more frontal armor, and the frontal armor is sloped a lot better, but the sides and rear armor are not all that great really, and it doesn't make a difference if it's 80 or 50mm because it's just crap. Sides and rear, both tanks will be penetrated all the time. The turret is totally other story, 190mm, and at this angling, the turret is extremely bouncy. The turret is not as well armoured as the Type 59's turret, so you will get some pens through the turret frontally, but not all that many really. And the turret is very bouncy. Obviously on the 112 the turret is armoured even more. The T-34-3 has got this kind of these weak spots on the top of the turret, but if you can get this tank hull down, it is very difficult to kill. But getting it hull down is a real problem, because a gun depression is just like we know and love it from the Chinese. Well, we don't really love it, but we know it. The gun depression really sucks. It cannot depress its gun. It's just, forget it. You point your cursor down and it just refuses. The gun refuses to go down. It will just not depress. It's maybe 3 degrees, 2 degrees gun depression. It's just horrible. I've had a game on mines on which I headed for these kind of islands on the right flank, and I was on this island with this other tank from the enemy team, and it was just basically flat ground. It was just a very little incline. Like, just, that was no slope at all really, and I couldn't point my gun down to hit the enemy. So that is a real big problem, and this tank really loves environments in which you don't need gun depression. You really have to play this tank so that you head to places on the maps on which gun depression doesn't matter. You have to really study your map before you start heading out somewhere, and just think, okay, if I go there, do I need gun depression? Okay, yes I do. Okay, let's see. If I go there, no, I don't need gun depression. Okay, I'll go there. You really have to make that decision, and you really have to think about where to go and where your gun depression matters and where it doesn't, because if it matters, this tank is just shit. The 112 and the T-34-3 both use exactly the same gun basically, only that the 112 has got a bit quicker rate of fire, but it's not all that much a difference really. So I'm just going to quickly pull up the gun stats. It's just basically your typical Russian and Chinese 122mm tier 8 gun. The rate of fire is very low, 4.17 rounds per minute. That's comparable to the rate of fire of a T-34's gun, and I'm now talking about the American T-34. this is a really bad rate of fire. Especially considering that this is a medium tank, 4.17 is not acceptable really. It's really bad. The penetration is not good either. It's 157 millimeters, which is not, it's not totally bad. Like the Super Purging, for example, has only got 170. It's not good at tier 8, it's definitely not good, but it's alright. Up till now, this gun is kind of looking really crap, so what is there good to say about it? Well, 390 alpha damage. That is amazing. They are tier 10 tanks, but look at this alpha damage with envy. I'm speaking of the T-34-3 here, and well, the Leopard 1, for example, has got exactly the same alpha damage as this, and that's tier 10. So it isn't all that much alpha damage. It's kind of average alpha damage for a tier 8 heavy tank, but it's really much alpha damage for a tier 8 medium. That's just amazingly high alpha for a tier 8 medium. The accuracy is really bad. 0.46 accuracy is just shit. And you've got 3.4 seconds aiming time, which is absolutely horrible as well. So basically this gun sucks except for the damage. But this damage is so great that it nearly compensates for the flaws of the gun, but only nearly. But the gun is kind of the downside of this tank next to the bad gun depression and the bad acceleration. But well, this gun, if you play this tank correctly, it is not really a disadvantage, because what you basically have to do, this tank loves city maps. It loves plain city maps without any hills, just a flat city layout, like for example Himmelsdorf or Siegfried Line. If you can get into the cities on those maps, this tank really owns. And then if you try to outmaneuver your enemies, try to get round their rears and just dirt them into their ass with 390 HP alpha damage, this tank just owns the battlefield. The other way I try to play this tank is, in the first part of the game, kind of play it as a heavy. You shouldn't try to take shots, but you can play it as a heavy close up, because it's kind of got lowish maneuverability for a tier 8 medium, and it's got very good armor for a medium tank, and it's got heavy tank gun. It can do the heavy tank job really. In the first part of the game I like playing this tank as a heavy tank, and then in the second part I try to outmaneuver enemies that are locked in combat with my allies and attack them from the rear and just troll them with this damage. And then my speed, 50 kph, is a pretty high speed, allows you to draw out of that situation, then to reload a quarter of a minute and then strike yet again. And that is amazing fun. It's just so much fun watching the HP of your enemies crumble when you pull the trigger. But this tank is not made to face enemies frontally, because the penetration just isn't good enough. If you're close enough, this gun actually can aim at weak spots, but we're really talking about point blank range here. You don't want to face hug with a Type T-34 because your gun depression is not good enough. So if you face hug enemies, you'll have to shoot at the turret because your gun depression won't be good enough to aim down at the hull, and you will bounce because most tanks are armored very well on the turret. 46 degrees per second is a very good turret traverse speed, especially considering that this turret is armored very well. The turret traverse speed is very good. 380 meters view range is very nice too. It's not above average really, but it's upper average for tier 8 medium tanks. And 600 meters view signal range, I'm not quite sure that stacks up, but most tier 10 tanks have got 750 meters signal range, so that seems to be pretty decent for a tier 8 vehicle. So all in all, the T-34 is a very nice tank. I really enjoy playing it, and you really have to play it to its strengths here. You really cannot go to hilly places on the maps with a lot of difference in the terrain where you need gun depression. You have to head out to flat places, and on most maps there are places where you don't need gun depression, especially on city maps. This vehicle really owns, and you really have to try to outmaneuver your enemies. You'd never ever want to be fighting with this tank here at more than 100 meters range, because you've got 0.46 accuracy, which is abominably bad. Now, I forgot to point out some weak spots here, which being, first of all, okay, I already talked about the lower glaciers, which is really small and difficult to hit, but up glaciers is pretty difficult to penetrate. The frontal turret can be penetrated, but it's very tough, and if you haven't got anything with more penetration than 250 millimeters, just don't bother shooting at this frontal turret. Then we've obviously got these two hatches here, which are kind of difficult to hit from the front, but if you hit them, you will penetrate. The main weak spot of this tank is this part of the turret here, because obviously it's got no armor there whatsoever. It's got 60mm, that's nothing. But the main problem is that directly beneath here, like with all Chinese medium tanks, your ammo rack is located. And if somebody shoots through here, your ammo rack will definitely get hit and damaged, if not blown up. And that's a real big problem. So maybe you want to fit a wet ammo rack to this tank, but I personally went with a setup vertical stabilizer, the tank gun rammer and vents. You definitely, absolutely 100% want to have the vertical stabilizer and the tank gun rammer, just because your reload time is horrible and your accuracy really sucks. As a third piece of equipment, I personally recommend improved vents because it's really cheap. It only costs 150,000 credits on this tank, and it's really good because, you know, this tank has kind of got stats similar to a heavy tank stats, so vents will work really fine in this tank. But instead of vents for a third piece of equipment, you could also get wet ammo rack or the GLD. I personally recommend vents. Then maybe GLD. GLD is good too if you want to play this tank. Well, I'd get vents, but GLD is good too. And if you've got real big problems with ammo racking, then you could check out wet ammo rack. But I would go with a setup vert stabs for tank gun rammer and improved vents. As for crew, you probably won't be having your own crew in this tank, because if you get this tank, you're probably going to be heading down the Chinese medium tank line, and you'll put your Chinese medium tank crew into this tank for crew training purposes. If you do not want to go down the Chinese medium tank line and you just want to get this tank for credit grinding, then you should get repairs on your entire crew for the first set of skills. The instant repairs reaches 100%, you absolutely 100% have to swap it for Brothers in Arms. This tank absolutely needs Brothers in Arms, and because of the gun, because of the kind of heavy tank nature of the gun, Brothers in Arms will give you a lot of benefit. After that, I'd probably train repairs on your entire crew again, and then once repairs reaches 100%, swap it for safe storage on your loader. And then for third set of skills, you should get Sixth Sense for your commander, Snapshot for your gunner, and Smooth Ride for your driver, just to keep your aiming time down. So, this has been quite a long time in the garage, and I hope I've not bored you to death. To make it a bit more interesting now, let's see some gameplay of this tank. This was actually the very first game I played in my T-34-3, and as you can see, it's a real party of new Chinese premium tanks, because this was just after they came out, and everybody wanted to try them out, obviously. So I'm very sorry for this jiggling here. Somehow the test server is kind of bugging a bit, and I'm really sorry for this kind of strange marking on the tanks here. Like, usually I've got the HP total and left and the vehicle tier and model, but like some of my test server isn't allowing me to put that onto them, so I have to stick with player name and percent. So I'm sorry for that, but you know, you can still see what I'm doing here. So I'm not really showing you this game because it was very good, because, well, it was alright, but it wasn't all that amazing. The reason because I'm showing this to you is just because it was pure lol, and this was my very first game. So that was 0.46 seconds aiming time, and I think it's 0.46 accuracy and 0.36 seconds aiming time. Doesn't matter, it's both crap. So that was just that for you there. I just simply missed that shot. No chance of that would hit. And there's 112, and we ricochet off his turret. Didn't have enough time to aim there. And he's drawing behind cover now, but oh, he comes out again. So yeah, I'd gladly take that shot at you. And we hit him. Nice juicy hit there. And he's burning. Now, that's one thing I really noticed with 112, that it burns really often. I see that tank lighting up so often. It's amazing. But that isn't really a problem I have noticed with the T-34-3, because it doesn't really burn as often as the 112 does. But the 112 is just basically a torch on tracks. So kind of in below average damage roll there. Now I'm kind of getting afraid of that other T-34-3 up there. So I'm kind of drawing behind cover here, knowing, or going downhill here a bit, knowing that his gun depression won't be good enough to hit me. So actually, if you go down in this tank, you've got an advantage above. Like, if a T-34-3 is lower than another T-34-3, he's got an advantage over him. Because the higher up T-34-3 will not be able to depress its gun good enough to hit him. Like, in a normal tank, there's kind of like an advantage if you're higher up, but it isn't like that with these Chinese tanks. So, we obviously ricochet off that really strongly angled and armoured upper glaciers of the 112, and we're on really low health now here. So we have to be really careful. I'm retreating here. Our defense up there has crumbled. So I have to get somewhere again where my gun depression doesn't matter. I know that he can't hit me now because he won't be able to point his gun down at me from where he is. And look at that! We ammo racked him. 1,160 damage. And that was only the side of his turret. Oh, I was just laughing my ass off there. He's probably feeling himself very clever. Oh, lunch, yes. T-34-3 on low health. Ammo rack. Oh, yes. That served you right, bitch. Okay, this is going to be... we get a shot through the lower glacier at 112. Now you have to be really careful. I'm retreating even further here. Trying to get some support from my team. Like, there's some guys behind me, but there's nobody really here to help me directly. So, as most of the guys in my team have got these 122mm guns with 0.46 accuracy, they won't be able to help me from that distance anyway, so I'm basically on my own here. And if that 112 decides to come down, there'll be nothing I can do against it. I'll be able to get one shot through his lower glaciers, and after that I'll be dead. So, I try to hit that commander's cupola on him, but I miss. Now that would have been the right time for him to come down and finish me off really, however he decides to snipe with his great accuracy 122mm gun at my allies back here. Although I guess if he would come down here he'd die pretty quickly because of his, because of all those guys back there. So, the great camping and waiting begins. And it's kind of looking good for our team here, like, in the north. My team is really pushing, and he's coming, and I get a shot for his low glaciers, and look at that! Oh, he rammed himself to death on me. Oh, did you see that? Well, that's just hilarious. So, we miss the other 112, and he finishes us off. So, that was a shame there, but that was just hilarious. The ammo rack of a T-34-3, and then that 112 who we got a shot for his lower glaciers, and then he drove on top of us and we finished him off by the ram. That was hilarious. So we obviously won this game, and yeah, let's have another run. Next we take our T-34-3 for a spin on Ruinberg, and this is a very good map for this tank because gun depression doesn't matter whatsoever here, so we should be able to do fairly well. And there are actually some hold down opportunities here for us because there are kind of rubble lying around and so on. So the first thing I see is this arty crater here, and I think maybe I can go hold down here, but it turns out I can't. So I decide to move because I'm just calling for artillery and enemy tanks and whatever to shoot at me there. And the matchmaking is very nice here. We've got there are only 4 tier 9 tanks in each team, one of them being artillery, so that's very nice. And there's our first enemy spotted, and surprise they are T-34-3s. And you can see they're really bouncing hard here of us. Obviously you have to remember that they've got the crappy guns with 175mm penetration only, but you know, still a lot of tanks in the game have got 175mm penetration, so I decide to track that T-95 coming up there, but I miss his tracks and I don't even hit him. So this rubble here is really good for me because that means I can kind of go hold down without needing gun depression at all. and we ricochet off the T-95, not the 69 does, and that's what I mean. Like, rubble is really good for going hull down this tank. Like, rubble on maps like Himmelsdorf or like Ruinberg here is really good, because you can go hull down without needing gun depression, like for example while going down hull down behind hills and like that. So this T-95 is pretty stupid here really, because he's giving us his side, and you know, it's a welcome target to shoot at with 175mm penetration only, but a hell of a lot of alpha damage. I get a lot of low damage rolls here in this tank, it seems. So, I am thinking about finishing off that T-34-3 on 19% there, but the T-95 is more important and he's more dangerous, so I'm gonna go for him. So now I'm afraid he might turn around, but he doesn't. So I'll keep on shooting at him. And we leave him on 13% again, a below average damage roll there. Average, we do 390 damage. My motor's been knocked out, I repair it, and you can see we're bouncing shots like a boss here. We're down on 94%, but nobody's able to penetrate us. Well, obviously some people were able to penetrate us, because otherwise we wouldn't be on 94 HP, but you know, still, we got a lot of bounces. Like, look here at the front of my armor, how many shots actually bounced. I bet we received a lot of potential damage in this game. I'll have a look at the after game stats. And apropos matchmaking, one thing I forgot to mention is that this tank obviously gets enhanced matchmaking. So the worst you'll ever face is tier 9 tanks, because penetrating tier 10 tanks with 175mm of penetration is just ridiculous. So it's kind of impossible. So there's an AMX 3090. I try to hit him without aiming all that much. Obviously it doesn't work. Firing on the move is something that you absolutely cannot do with this gun, and the AC MLE 46 finishes him off. So fair enough there, and we didn't get a kill, but we really held that corner very well, and we got a lot of damage into that T-95. So that was a very nice game, and I think it really showcased the great armor of this tank and the kind of the pros and cons of the gun, I'll say. So that's some after game stats. I'm really sorry, but it turns out that I can't save any after game stats here, and the website that I use, whatreplays.com, will not accept files from the 8.8 test server. So I'm really sorry, but no after game stats today. But I can reliably tell you that we received 2,600 potential damage, which is very good considering that this is a medium tank. And all in all, I really love this tank, and a lot of people said it would be crap, but I personally really like it, and I'm probably going to get it sometime soon. I can really recommend it, especially if you're heading down the Chinese medium tank line, because its playstyle is very similar to that of tanks like the T-34-1, the T-34-2, the WZ-120, or the 121. So if you're heading down this line anyway, and you like those kind of tanks, you'll like the T-34-3. And I can really recommend it to you. I'm personally definitely going to get it, probably for Christmas. I hope I could give you a first kind of look into this tank. It's really important to not forget that it gets preferential matchmaking, so you will never ever face tier 10 guns, only tier 9s and mostly tier 8s. So that's really nice, and it really needs it, because of 175mm of penetration, you just simply cannot attack tier 10s. So that is really nice, and I hope you got some useful information out of it. So if you did, consider giving this video a thumbs up down below. Consider even subscribing to my channel. It would help me out a lot, and it means a lot to me. So thanks a lot for watching, and I hope I'll see you in one of my next videos, which will be the 112 review coming up tomorrow. I'll see you then, and bye bye.